wanted to take a few moments and talk to you about personal branding strategies and what it takes to put things out online to develop an audience and to become a thought leader or a better speaker. First things first, it takes 1/10 of a second for you to make an impression on someone. And studies show that even after that 1/10 of a second, after multiple interactions, people tend not to change their opinions once they have that first impression. So it's pretty primal. According to that study, that impression does extend online. So whether it's in person or online, you're putting yourself out there and you can control the narrative. So I know it's hard for a lot of you to sit down and take a look at yourself. You're busy doing your job, you're responding to emergencies, you're taking care of your families, very high pressure situations. But I would ask you to take at least an hour to sit down with pen and paper and really think about how you want to present yourself. So first question, what are your strengths? Those are the things that you feel in your heart that give you confidence. And by this time in your profession, you should have some, okay? And then what do you want to be known for? Listing those things out are really helpful as you develop your persona online. I'll just give you an example. Angie English is who I consider to be a true thought leader. A lot of people go out there and they put themselves down as experts and thought leaders and leaders. But in order to really get that audience, you have to consistently and carefully put your messages out. Those are meaningful messages. And what she does is she'll take relevant topics, things she's very interested in, articles, and she'll repost them with some thoughts of her own. And she usually challenges the reader to think about things a little differently. And she does that very consistently. So I put her up as an example of a true thought leader. That goes along with how you want to be viewed by others. And if you don't know what's interesting about yourself, ask your friends, ask your colleagues, ask your cohort members. Having all these things in one place is powerful and it does boost your confidence. One other thing I found very helpful for folks is to have an elevator pitch, a personal one. And I'll show you a huge example of one of the best ones I've ever seen later in the presentation. But just for my own anecdote, when I started working here at the center, it was really funny because I would try to explain what I'm doing. And usually it would sound something like, what do you do? Well, I work at the Center for Homeland Defense and Security at the Naval Postgraduate School with a program funded by FEMA. And people fell asleep a whole minute ago. That's something Bellavita would say, I'm sure. David would laugh at me and he'd say, pretty much, you got to develop your own personal elevator pitch. So now I say, I help Homeland Security and private sector leaders get access to graduate level education. And then I get to tell the stories of how they secure our nation every day. Short, simple, sweet. But it's inspiring for me. It gets me up in the morning. When you're having those tired nights and days, that's what gets me going, is knowing that I have such a great job. And that personal elevator pitch is so important. So you know yourself after writing all this stuff down. Next thing, know your audience. Who's going to care about what you want to put out there? Your research, your papers from your classes, your own thoughts, some of the things that happen after you graduate from our programs. Write those people down, write the associations, the agencies, the audiences you want to touch, and aim high, have a vision. Those things are important. Next thing, platforms. A lot of people will put their stuff out on 4 or 5 platforms. I've seen people very successful when they pare it down to 2 or 3. So usually LinkedIn is, far and away. It's the best for me as a recruiter, the best hunting grounds. I get access to people that I would never have access to here in Monterey, California on LinkedIn. So having that for looking for a job, if you want to be an influencer, if you want to be a subject matter expert, or if you just want to be a hardcore academic. Those are kind of the three buckets you all talk to me about. LinkedIn is a perfect platform. It's well known, there's a lot of people there, and you can draw an audience fairly quickly. Facebook, Twitter is really well, it's kind of political, but it is very helpful if you want to get short, sweet ideas out there. If you're very pithy, for example, Twitter's a great platform. A lot of people ask me, how can I teach at the center? And the first thing I'll ask them is, well, do you have any YouTube videos? Do you have any exemplars of how you teach so we can see you in action and how effective you are? And so if you're doing things that require people to look at how you do your job, YouTube is a great platform for that. And over time, you get a repository. And you can see ours, CHDS has their own on YouTube as well. One other thing, once you have an idea of who you are, knowing your audience, which platform you're on, then looking at packaging. How are you going to package what you have to make a difference, to get traction? And a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with some almost graduates, Nick Knowlton and Rob, and they were both about to graduate this March, next month. And they had 2 theses that were written about immigration. And they were very keen on getting it to the new administration because their recommendations were very timely and they thought very important. So we sat down and we worked it out so that they had a short, medium, and large package for their information. So when you're trying to get through to people who are really busy, they really don't care. And you have to kind of spoon feed them the information as much as possible so that they can. So developing a short package, small package, where it's just sound bites. It's stuff that's going to capture attention, provocative, and having that for the gatekeepers to know why I want your people to see this information, what it is that's really important for them to know, and what you really want to accomplish with it. Really short, sweet. In the medium package, looking at infographics. Pictures are everything. Your face, your information is so quickly taken in, that 1/10 of a second comes back in. Looking at infographics, you can quickly see a leader looking at it and saying, oh, this looks like it makes sense. This looks good. So having that medium package. And then the larger package is just your thesis so that people can cite it and make sure that they're dealing with research information. So having those 3 packages so that no matter what your audience is, you can throw it to them very quickly. One other thing that I like to advise folks to do is if you have a topic that you know is going to happen, so say mass gatherings, mass shootings, have an op-ed, an editorial that you write for a major newspaper or publication. Have it written so that you can quickly throw it to the editor. It's more helpful if you throw it to somebody you know. So that can be very helpful and get your name out there as well. There's lots of strategies. These are I'm just giving you a snapshot of it. All right, so now we're going to look at some people who have done it well and some who need a little help. And we're going to start with Robert Rawls, who is, I don't know him, apologies to those who do, but we can help him. I want to help him so much. He's looking for work. He's here on LinkedIn and he doesn't have a picture. You don't see his face. You don't know anything about him. That might be a function of his work. But if you're open to work, you really want people to see who you are and what you're interested in. And we don't see that here. So this is kind of something where I would look at it and kind of move on. The next person is my favorite, Corinda Washington. She is fantastic. Look at that face. It's open, it's ready to go. And you get a real sense that she's warm and welcoming. And her background picture really explains who she is. You can see that in her title. She's an engagement person, of course. So looking at that, you really get a sense very quickly that 1/10 of a second, again, comes into play. So she's an exemplar that I would follow. What I like about her as well is when she does speaking gigs, she puts out like a little postcard. It has her face on it, but it also has the topic and who she's speaking with. And she just puts that on social media so you can kind of keep up with her and see all the great people she deals with. It's fantastic messaging. Now we get to Beth. Beth is the bomb, okay? She really has taken branding to a whole new level. And it is my dream for our current students and our alumni to develop exactly what Beth has here before graduation, so that when you leave here and you have your research ready, you will have a page where people can come and see a professional picture. You can see that she has her elevator pitch right there, right out front. You get a real sense of who she is. It's very simple, very clean. You see her research, her thesis, but then her interests as well. So if I'm somebody who wants to look for a speaker, I can come to CHDS, see all these great pictures and topics, and understand very quickly the caliber of people that we have graduating. And so this is going to be hopefully what we're going to do, not just for the graduates currently, but all of you who graduated before, because many of you do so many great things well after. And we do a great job of tracking that. We could always do better, but this would, I think, put us over the top. I don't know of any institution who does things this way. So this is my big secret coming out right now. One other thing that Beth does very well is she's a workhorse. So she does podcasts. Even while she was in the program, she was doing podcasts. She was famously able to interview Chris Bellavita while she was in the program. I was surprised. It was fantastic. So one other thing about her is she has testimonials. And I highly recommend that. Third-party testimonials, always a great, if you're working with someone and they're high level or at least interesting, ask them to write you a recommendation. You can put those on LinkedIn especially, but also on these pages. She has her own website because she's just that badass. But you can also put those recommendations on LinkedIn. So that's just a short and sweet about branding, looking for jobs, and perhaps putting yourself out there in a more cogent and sophisticated manner. And we look forward to helping you do that. I think the hardest part for people who are going out, say you have a police chief who wants to go to the private sector, it's surprising to them to find out that maybe the private sector, they love cops, but the cops really don't understand the private sector as well as they should. So doing some research before you engage is really important. You can graduate from one of our programs. That seems to be the most, I think that really puts people over the top. I've lost count of how many times just having a degree, even, the ELP, emergence, and of course the master's, it's really looked to as a huge boon. So make sure that you put that out there. And one thing that I didn't mention that's really important is the network. The network is fantastic. I know you know that, but I'll just tell you a quick story that happened last week. One of our 0304 students really wanted to work for the Seattle Seahawks. And she was just like, I'm trying to figure out how to get in the door. And so she said, do you know anybody? And I said, well, I'll check. So I put her in touch with an ex-FBI guy from Seattle. He knew folks, and she has an interview, I think this week or next week. Just, it's so incredible, not just for getting jobs, but for knowledge. And there's so much out there that, people are doing, and they're just busy, and just having the time to connect with events like this, or one of our executive education programs, just having that networking going all the time, you can get so much out of it. It's our hope that through these events, like I mentioned, that you're able to meet one another in a trusted environment and share information and collaborate in ways that you would not be doing elsewhere. So I've already seen through these 3 days that that's been happening, and I can't wait to tell those stories over the next 5 months.